you ever read that famous like National Review essay about how the Batman movie with Bane, I'm forgetting which one it is like a great work of like conservative literature in their minds?
The Batman was a great work of comparative literature. Wait, what?
So the National Review, a major, I'm fairly sure it was the
The
National Review, it
raid
might have been
one
someone
into
else, but I'm fairly sure it's the National Review. It's a big
GODSTINY.
conservative, quote, big media company sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's Batman Rising or Dark Knight Rising or whatever, where it's Batman versus Bane, the Nolan trilogy.
Yeah.
They wrote about how this is a great example of like conservative culture, how like it's Batman and the police putting down like a popular revolutionary people.
Oh, I mean, it kind of
movement.
was, which was kind of weird. But yeah, I mean, have you seen the movie?
Yeah, like years ago.
Yeah,
It's
it
been a
plays
while.
as like decent if you're into that. Like if you want to read it the way like Bane is like the fake lefty guy that's giving power to the people, and they pretend that it's like some socialist utopian revolution or some shit, eat the rich or whatever.
Well, like I remember like having those conversations when I was like 19, but
Mhm.
like I, for me, like there are some interesting themes you can pull out of these kind of stories, but I feel like when it gets into like Batman represents libertarianism, for me it just goes back to like they're comic book characters or they're cartoon characters.
I mean, they can still represent forms of government or ideas of government, right? I wouldn't say Batman represented libertarianism, but he definitely represented like I mean, like they literally fight at the end with a whole legion of police officers versus like evil lefty. Like, I mean, I think it's pretty transparent, like what the symbolism is. Like in Bane, multiple times throughout the movie, yeah, Batman represents like law or something. Like Bane literally says several times, we're like, oh, we give the city to you, the people, and then there's like the people's court decides, which is like all the people. Yeah.
Well, what's weirder is you need to remember this movie is like this conversation's happening during like the Romney versus Obama fight though, which is the weirder parts of all of this because it's like in the respect of the National Review, like they think of Bane as Obama and Batman as Mitt Romney, which is the weirder part of it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Like it's, I don't know.
Well, the problem is like Republicans don't know what socialism is, and everything to the left of fucking Reagan to them is socialism too. So it's harder to like understand for them to give like any good analysis too, because to Republicans, government equals socialism. So it's really hard to.
Well, sure, but like I think part of like whenever like that movie comes up, it reminds me whenever people like talk about trying to put like real political theory and ideology into like superhero movies, because like whenever I think it's like, well, this movie was designed to like sell comic books and toys, and maybe the writer put something there, but no matter what, the editing and the design and the marketing around the movie is always going to make it very hard to see past that lens essentially.
Yeah, but I'm gonna stand because I'm a video game guy. I think that in different entertainment mediums, it's possible to have like things that represent.
What's the great work of like political ideology or theory in gaming?
I would say, fucking Metal Gear Solid 1 through 3. Hell the fuck yes.
Okay. So that's the obvious one.
Yes,
but, like,
but outside of that,
like,
most of it is incredibly cringe / surface level.
Yeah.
Now, but to be fair, that's going to be the same case for like most movies as well, right? Like a lot, like for instance, like V for Vendetta. Like we know what the messaging is, but it's pretty like high school level takes in terms of like being very surface level, right?
Well, like I remember someone made a comparison that like Hideo Kojima is the Guillermo del Toro of gaming. Like,
sure,
part of his interest is that he's able to translate a perspective on things that are unique to his like cultural experience in a very unique way that like most quote Western audiences don't ever receive. Like a lot of his perspective some of it's his unique perspective, but a lot of it is like, yeah, if you're a Japanese person of a certain perspective, like that's kind of how you see America in some senses of the word. In the same way Guillermo del Toro like sees a lot of the world like, well, there's orphans and monsters and the evil establishment of fascism. But that's just something you get in the quote like American experience.
Sure. Or wait, what do you mean? Or like, what exactly is your point or argument? I guess.
Well, there are some movies I would say are great works of like political theory or application of political theory. Like unironically, like they explore these ideas very.
What are some? I'm curious. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm actually curious. What do you think are some examples of that?
Well, so I'm not a film person, but like
Mhm.
I still remember like watching Citizen Kane and thinking like there's a lot of interesting exploration of like humanity, individualism,
Mhm.
greater senses of community and culture going on there.
Mhm.
Now, obviously, it's not really fair to compare like a medium that's only been around for what 30 years at most, if we're talking about like serious modern video game storytelling,
Mhm.
to like arguably one of the great famous movies of all time. Like, I'd rather root this conversation like in a book versus books versus video game thing. Like, I think one of the great works of like literary examples of this, it's fairly simply read, is like something I know most people here have probably read is like Of Mice and Men. I think is a very powerful story about like life in America at a certain time in a certain place and how difficult it is.
Mhm.
And if I think about games, like there are a couple games where I think I've experienced that feeling. But like I still remember playing Papers, Please the first time, being like really impressed with how like
Yeah, the narration in that is done really
yeah.
well. Yeah.
But like you got a few indie games which are really good.
Mhm.
You have Kojima, who's bringing a really unique experience and perspective on things. But like outside of that, like there's like
I think the problem
not
is
much.
that like aside from Hideo Kojima, you don't really get too much in the video game industry that isn't like heavily commercialized.
So well, can commercialized art still be art then?
Mm, I mean, yeah, like it is, but like it's the lowest form of art is like heavily commercialized art because the problem is you're making so many compromise. You're making so many compromises when you're trying to make something appeal to everybody that you're going to lose any deep or edged commentary on any particular thing because it'll either be lost on most audiences or it'll inhibit your ability to sell something to other types of people, basically.
Well, well, that's true. I'm
I
not
would say the
sure.
same
Like,
applies to movies as well, but yeah, sorry, go on.
oh, of course, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Like the uniqueness of like indie games and books is arguably like you could write, you can individual people can make a game and have it solely be their creation. Don't have to go through an entire thing. Similar thing to books, and in theory, you can do that on a small scale. Certain movies. I would offer like one of my favorite movie franchises or like a couple movies. I really like the Purge movies. Have you?
Um, I've
What
seen
do you think of them?
I'm pretty sure I saw the first one. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was
The
bad, but I didn't think it was particularly amazing. What about it?
the second one's really good in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
If you can talk, like I'm not a big horror person, but I do have like a soft spot for like kind of splatterhouse action, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some really interesting themes going on, both of the first one, because essentially like whether you're interpreting this as Marxist or if you're interpreting this as some sort of like understanding of quote American populism or whatever, the problems in like the Purge movies are often solved by collective action, and you don't find that like you might find like a surface level about versions of that in like a lot of things, like friendship is magic basically is the theme
Mm-hmm.
of like the Marvel movies. But like the Purge basically like lays it out and like there are things that society creates to divide us, and the way we survive those things is by working together, like
Sure.
literally surviving the Purge.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
and I think those movies illustrate that in a very interesting way. And yeah, they do it through a bit of like blood explosions like that, but
Mm-hmm.
it's fairly political messaging, specifically with how it revolves around like America being the landscape and setting of that universe.
Mm-hmm. I would have to see it, I guess, because I don't. I mean, yeah, I guess I can't really disagree or agree with you because I haven't seen it, but sure.
Have you played Disco Elysium?
I have not. I came close to it, but I just didn't.
It's basically a choose your own adventure audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
It's very enjoyable, but that needs to be your thing.
Yeah, I'll think about it after my Terraria run through. Yeah. Completely unrelated, but have you seen There Will Be Blood? Yeah, I have. I thought that was a good movie. I have a really bad. I don't remember the movies I've seen. If somebody brings up a movie, I'll remember it. But I'm trying to remember, like, in terms of movies I've seen, like movies I really like. Man, honest to God, I'm so lazy. I feel like I just need to read more books. I feel like of the very few books I've read, I feel like I've just read books that have so much more to them than like almost any movie. Like
Well,
The Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice. Those three books were absolutely so fucking good.
excellent, incredible.
They're so good, and
I know.
I read one book. I actually I heard a reference of it on Reddit, and that's how I remember that I read the book. It's a book about a guy. He's like a detective, but he works in like a magical world, and I think he's a little bit magical. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
I have a friend that works in
Dresden.
YA. That's a
Oh,
lot of books.
the
Oh,
Dresden
Dresden. Yeah,
Files.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
read like the first book of that.
yeah,
I thought that
yeah.
was like a pretty good book. I really enjoyed that. Um, I feel like I just need to read more books maybe. Because it feels like I get so. Oh, was he a full blown wizard? Okay, I don't remember as much. I remember that like he worked like in a magical world and shit and everything. Yeah. Oh my god! And then I read 2 or 3 books into oh god, what is it? The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Hitchhiker's
Galaxy.
Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah, those are, as much as I get circle jerk. I don't know how many people have actually read them. Those are really really good books. Holy
Really
fuck.
good. They're very good.
Yeah. Or even in the past, like I've read a few of the Redwall books, which is
Oh,
hard to.
childhood there.
Yeah, it's like animals, but I remember
Yeah,
liking those a lot. Yeah.
it's animals in like a medieval European setting, kind of.
Yeah. The Artemis Fowl books, the Harry Potter books. I remember all of these seem to have left greater impressions on me than just movies, I think. Yeah.
Well, that's what childhood does to you. I mean,
Maybe. I read
I
the Vampire
remember.
Chronicles when I was in my 20s though. Like I was like 24, 25, I think. And I was it was such a stupid like I hate vampires. I don't like any of that shit. It's all cringe to me. But I really fucking love the Interview with the Vampire, the Vampire Lestat, and the Queen of the. I loved those books. I don't like vampire shit or anything like that, and I loved all 3 of those books. They were so well done.
Well, those are the books that popularized the genre in the modern era.
Mhm.
Like, essentially, they're all like all the modern versions of those characters are derivative of that of Anne Rice.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Have you read No Country for Old Men? I actually have. That's one of the few books where the movie actually almost completely lines up with the book. Like I remember reading. I don't remember if I read. I think I read No Country for Old Men before I saw the movie, and it was almost exactly the same. Or at least that was my recollection of it. It was okay. I wasn't like super crazy. I think I liked them. I think that was one of the few times where I actually liked the movie more, just because I love the performance so much of the guy that plays Antoine Chigurh or whatever. And I wasn't as big a fan about the book because the big twist in the middle where the main characters. I think in the book, I don't remember how it's revealed in the movie, but I think in the book you're just like on a chapter and they're just talking about how like the main characters were dead and you like had no idea they just like completely died like off screen, off chapter, like you didn't read about it at all, which was kind of weird. But yeah, I don't know. I mean that's part of the point of the book, I guess.
I would say, in my opinion, the most overrated book I've ever read. I would curious what your perspective on this is, or if you is Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail by Hunter S. Thompson.
I've not read it.
Barely readable. Barely readable. It's super difficult. You need to actually like. I have a history degree, and I know 90% of the stuff that was going on around here, and still it's just like, wait, who's this person? What's going on?
Oh shit! You were talking political theory in books. You want to know the fucking cringiest shit, or maybe you'll like them. I don't know. Have you ever heard? I think. Wait, what were you gonna say?
Go for it.
Have you ever heard of a guy called John Grisham?
Sounds familiar.
I think I read a book by him in high school. And it was like, oh my god, dude, this is like a fucking lefty's fucking wet dream. So it's like I think the story of this is that like a homeless guy breaks into like a big office building to hold everybody hostage, and while he's like inside the office building, they're all like scared or whatever. He's got the door locked and he starts writing on the board like, this is how much wealth you guys have in this room. This is how much wealth of the average fucking human, blah, blah, blah. And it's like the most like fucking self-righteous fucking shit in the universe. Oh my God. And then eventually they like snipe and kill the dude. And then one of the other lawyer or law firm people in the room was like, this guy was totally right actually. Like he was actually right to take us all hostage and show us how evil we are. I'm going to become like a street lawyer now. I'm not going to work this high-powered corporate law bullshit. Oh God. It was just like, oh my god, dude! It was a holy shit.
He's got like a ton of. He's like an airport book writer. He's got like a ton of like law and crime books.
Probably, yeah.
Books. Like I like John Scalzi for that kind of thing, but Jesus, that sounds preachy.
Yeah. I remember some book. There was this girl that I was massively obsessed with in high school. She really loved it, about some kid that like was a school shooter and he tied everybody up and he was going to start shooting like all the football players in like the legs or something, so they wouldn't be able to attack back. And eventually the police like come in at the end and stop everything. And one of the observers was like, there was a lot of hatred in that gym that night, but honestly, the only hatred I saw came from the jocks and the police officers and not the shooter himself. It's like, oh my god, dude. Holy
What?
yikes. Yeah, holy fuck. It was this ultra fucking emo edgelord fucking book.
Jesus Christ.
It was so brave.
What year was that written? Do you have any idea?
I don't know. Probably I would have read it back in like 2005.
Oh, so it's probably just yeah.
What, in your opinion, makes a book good? Is it the same traits that you look for in books versus movies versus games? Just honestly, like I think the character development of the narration helps a lot in the book, and I think you miss that on screen sometimes. One thing that I will say though that might be a bad problem that I have. I think this is one of the reasons why I like going to the movies so much now, even though Dan hates it. I think that watching movies at your computer is like really bad if you're multitasking, and I think I watched a lot of movies at my computer when I was a kid. I don't think I've ever watched a movie on my computer and walked away feeling like I needed time to process it, because I don't know how much attention I'm actually paying. Whereas if I go to a theater and it has 100% of my undivided attention, there are usually, like I've described this before, Melina's ran into this. I get very fucking irritated when people talk to me after I walk out and be like, oh, how did you think? What did you think? It's like, I don't know what I thought about it. I need like 6 hours. I need to sleep on it. Okay, don't fucking ask me right now. I need time to process it. I feel like I have that feeling more coming out of a movie theater, whereas I don't think I ever have that feeling watching a movie on my computer, because you're looking at other shit and you're not like paying attention. Because if I complain about books, or if I complain about movies compared to books, right? What a big advantage that books have over movies is narration. You can narrate so much in a book. You can't really do that in a movie. But the big advantage that movies have are actors and faces. And if you're constantly looking at your other computer screen or reading subtitles, doing stuff like that, you're missing like 80% of the delivery. You're missing so much in a movie by not looking at the actual facial expressions of the actors. One of the people that made me realize this actually was a Nerdwriter video on Anthony something, Anthony Hopkins, where I think that for facial communication, a lot of it you just like take for granted. Like you don't even realize like how much is being communicated by an actor. I don't know if we've watched this one on stream before, but we'll watch it. Fuck it. Wait, I'm about to start an 8.5 minute video. Do you have any words you want to give us, Doug, real quick?
We'll circle around it, but my perspective is like I'm very disappointed. I've had both when I was a teacher and now, like I've met a lot of people who are using audiobooks to consume literature, and it's just like that's a terrible way. Like if it's your only way, go for it. But I'll be curious what your perspective is on audiobooks also, if you're going to go
audiobooks
down
is
that
how
conversation.
I listen to some stuff. Actually, I don't know. I really liked audiobooks, but
do you listen to audiobooks by themselves or do you listen to them while working?
No, I only listen to it by myself. I would never be able to do it while working. Like audiobooks are what I would use for like long drives. I've made so many like 24-hour drives that like audiobooks were a savior for that.
Jesus, 24 hours? That sounds miserable.
Between Omaha and Miami several times, which I think is like 23 hours, and then Omaha and LA a few times, which is like 21 hours, yeah. And then audiobooks are usually really good. Some of the voicing is just so good. That's how I read 1984. I don't remember who voiced that, but I thought that was a really good performance. Ender's Game, I listened to an audiobook. I thought that was really well done. And I think I did the Vampire Chronicles. I think Queen of the Damned and the Vampire Lestat, I think I listened to on audiobook, and those are really well done as well, I think. Yeah. But okay, all right, we're listening to this.
Watch our video, man.
Much like Game of Thrones before.
Oh, one book I listened to on audiobook that I didn't actually like the book at all. And it was actually a performance by Jon Stewart himself. I didn't like the book that Jon Stewart wrote, which I was really disappointed about because I really love Jon Stewart on The Daily Show. I don't remember what the name of his book was. Something America?
Rosewood? Rosewood?
No, I think I'd remember it if you said it. Jon Stewart's book, or maybe it wasn't Jon Stewart's book. Maybe it was another political book that was just read by Jon Stewart. Oh, fuck. What was it called? Oh, I think it was just called America.
I think I've read that book.
A Citizen's Guide to Democracy in Action. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think I read it, and it was like, I really like satire where there's like a point to it. And like when the satire kicks in, you're like, oh, that's really good. I don't like it when it's just a bunch of like make fun of everything, but it doesn't feel like there's like as much a point to it at the end. So I don't really feel like the sting of like, oh, okay, that was like good satirization, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, comedy really requires like a direct attack on something in order for it to work. If it's just like random joke after random joke with maybe a story, it doesn't really go anywhere.
And I think that's what I felt like listening to that Jon Stewart book. He made fun of like a lot of stuff, but I was waiting for like the big punch at the end where it was like, this is what we were looking for. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, comedy books for me are very hit or miss. Did you ever read the Chapo book?
I did not know.
Or the Chapo Trap House book, I should say.
No, I didn't know.
It's odd and interesting. For weirdly enough, of all the things that maybe helped made it more digestible, was there were literally illustrations to go along with it. And as dumb as that sounds, that pictures in the book made it easier. It did kind of help at times.
Sure. No, I think that's fine. I think there's a lot of ways to communicate things. I mean, the Lord of the Rings books have like maps and shit like listed in them.
Yeah.
Hobbit.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi.
Okay. Wait. Sorry. What were we saying, Doug?
No. This is your show, man.
Oh wait, or you were finishing a sentence. What were you saying? You were saying there's.
What I found interesting about the Chapo book was there were some interesting criticisms of media which I hadn't thought about. Although I've had people who I respect point out that it, along with, makes you now think about maybe the Jon Stewart book and stuff like that. How much of it's just rehashing their bits that you just haven't seen before because they're comedians and stuff like that. This is well-tread territory for a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I haven't read it, so I can't say much. But all right. You are ecstatic to watch America let you right now. Yeah, you're like, oh, we can't do anything better. Like you sound you sound so pathetic. How you look at your